Welcome back everyone to another town versus town comparison video. And today we are comparing the town of Cool, California to Placerville, California. I'm going to run these towns through 8 critical criteria so you can decide which one is best for your family. Starting off with criteria number 1. Criteria number 1 is community vibe or feel. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking that these two towns probably have a pretty similar vibe or feel because they're two small little mountain towns. But in reality, Cool is a much smaller town and further out than Placerville is. So when it comes down to the community vibe or feel, Cool is going to feel a lot smaller, a lot more rural, and a bit more isolated than Placerville is. Placerville is right along Highway 50 between Sacramento and Tahoe. So it has instant access to a major freeway to shoot right down the hill. You're 25 minutes to Folsom, 45 minutes to the capital in downtown Sacramento. It feels connected and sort of on the grid in a way that Cool, California doesn't. Placerville has its own little small historic downtown with a lot of merchants, lots of restaurants and bars and things to do. It has its own hospital there. It has a lot of schools there. Placerville, by comparison to Cool, is a pretty big place. Now, Cool, being further out on the divide, about 35 minutes north of Placerville, and kind of out in the middle between two highways, does feel more isolated. It's about a 35-minute drive to 25-minute drive, depending on how you do it, to get on Highway 50 to the south of Cool, or it's about a 15-minute to 20-minute drive to Auburn to the north of Cool to get on Highway 80. So you do have access to 2 different freeways, the 2 major freeways serving both Tahoe and the greater Sacramento area. However, you're kind of out in the middle of both of them. Cool, as you'll hear later in the video, has a very small population, and there is sort of a downtown Cool. It's instead of being more of a historic Main Street focused downtown like Placerville is, it's got a couple of strip malls down there. It does have everything you really could need or want out there, so you don't have to drive to town to get things, but it just is a smaller, more rural, more isolated place. Now, there's one more difference I want to highlight between the communities in Cool and Placerville. Far and away, Cool has a stronger, larger equestrian community to it than Placerville does. Now, certainly anywhere in the foothills, you have a lot of horse people and a lot of people who are into equestrian activities, but Cool is really known for, and right next door, Pilot Hill, are really known for being very equestrian friendly communities. So when it comes down to community vibe or feel, if you're a horse person, then Cool is going to be a lot more your jam than Placerville. Well, now's the time when I ask you for a quick favor. It's come to my attention that over 80% of you watching are not yet subscribed to the channel. Now, subscribing is always free. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can cancel it at any time, but it really helps out the channel. So if you're getting anything at all out of this video, hit the like button, click subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss another video with crucial information to help you decide where you want to relocate. Now, to that end, let's jump right back into Cool versus Placerville to see which one's right for your family. Now, criteria number 2 when evaluating these two communities has to be housing costs. Look, if you're going to move to one of these places, you're probably thinking about buying a home either now or later. And the cost of housing is the single largest line item on most people's budget, so it's a big deal. Now, the two places are a little bit far apart in this regard, with Placerville having a median home price as the recording of this video in the winter of 2025 of $505,000. Now, what do you get for your median home price in Placerville? You're going to get about a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square foot home on a quarter of an acre to a half an acre, usually maybe up to 1 acre. Now, out in Cool, you're going to have a median home price as the recording of this video of $535,000, so $30,000 more. And what are you going to get for that median price out in Cool? You can get a 3 to 1,800 square foot house on about 2 acres. Now, when you're in Cool, you're going to have a lot more property options with larger acreage, and the price is going to rise as the acreage rises. You can see you get a similar home in both places, but you're getting more acreage for your money out in Cool. You're paying a little bit more, but you're getting a little bit more acreage. So when it comes down to home prices, most likely the price isn't going to break the bank in either place. If you are a buyer buying in the 500 to 550 range, you'll be able to get a home in Cool or in Placerville. The question is, what do you want that home to look like? So whenever we talk about home prices, it's important to talk about types of homes. So again, in Placerville, at that median home price, you're on smaller acreage in neighborhoods where the homes are closer together, and most likely you're not getting horse property in that $505,000 median price range in Placerville. However, out in Cool, even at that $535,000 median price point, you're getting 2 acres or more, and you are getting most likely a horse property, or a property that you can, with a little bit of elbow grease and infrastructure work, turn into horse property. So if you're in that 500 to 550 range, but you want more acreage and you want horse property, that's going to be more doable in Cool than it is in Placerville, hands down. However, if you're in that 500 to 550 range and you want less acreage and more house, or a more fixed up or higher quality of fit and finish house at your 500 to 550 range, that's going to be more doable in Placerville. So it depends on what your family is looking for. Right about now, you're wondering who I am and why you should be listening to me about Placerville, about Cool, about real estate, or anything at all, really, and that's a fair question. My name is Rich Curtis, and I'm with eXp Realty. I've been selling homes here for over 20 years now, in markets ranging from the Great Recession to the COVID market insanity and everything in between. My goal with this channel is to help you make the highest quality real estate decisions you can from the comfort of your couch. So to that end, let's jump right back into our discussion of Cool versus Placerville and see which one's right for your family. Now, criteria number 3 when evaluating these two communities is size and population. And here there is a significant difference, but of course it does depend on how you cut up Placerville. Now, if you're looking at just the city of Placerville, downtown Placerville, that's about 5 square miles and just shy of 11,000 people. As of recording this video, around 10,600 to be exact. Now, Placerville, the 95667 zip code, is much, much bigger, about 173 square miles and a little over 35,000 people as of the recording of this video. So that's a much larger place. When it comes to Cool, it's so small, there's actually not a recorded square miles count for Cool, but it's probably right in that Placerville range, definitely somewhere in the 5 to 15 square miles range, and it's only a little shy of 4,000 people as of the recording of this video. Now, like I told you before, that makes Cool feel like a much smaller town. Now, even if you're just talking about downtown Placerville, we are talking about a place that has more than double the population of Cool in a 5 square mile area. And if you're talking about the entirety of the 95667 zip code, you're talking about nearly 10 times the population of Cool in that area. So Cool, as you can see, is a very small town that can't really be overstated. It is rural, small town living, and it is a little further out from everything than is Placerville. And there's a lot that comes along with that we'll talk about later in the video. This really comes down to what you're looking for. If the idea of a town like Placerville is just way too big for you, if you're the kind of person who would rather be way out in the middle of rural Montana or rural Alaska, but you need to be in El Dorado County, then Cool's going to be much more your jam. Now, if you like small town living, but you still want to have the grocery stores really close, and you still want to have people and a little bit of nightlife and a little bit more going on and quick access to the city, then Placerville is going to be more your jam. So it really comes down to what you and your family are looking for. Criteria number 4 when comparing these two communities comes down to schools. And when it comes to schools, the two places are quite a bit different in terms of number of schools and access. Not so much in terms of scoring. So if you were to look at, say, greatschools.org, which again, take everything on there with a grain of salt, that's not the end all be all, but just as a starting point, you're gonna find the scores out in the Cool area and the scores in the Placerville area relatively close together, with everything scoring mostly a 7 out of 10 or higher with a few exceptions. Now, when it comes to access to schools, in Cool, you got North Side for your elementary school, and then you're gonna go up to Garden Valley to Golden Sierra for junior high and high school, and that's it. Those are your choices, pretty much, if you're not homeschooling, right? Or you're not gonna drive out to Auburn to access some kind of private or charter school. Now, in Placerville, you have a much larger area, much more people, and many, many more schools, including access to more charter schools and schools of choice. Both communities are great in terms of supporting homeschool families. So if you're one of our homeschool families, there's going to be a lot of pod access and socialization access for your homeschool kids in both areas. So I think they're going to be on par in that regard. But far and away, if you want more than just the one public school option for your kids, then Placerville is going to get the win when it comes down to schools. Criteria number 5 when it comes down to comparing these two communities is fire insurance. Now look, fire insurance is really hard statewide and even nationwide now. It's getting quite expensive to get hazard insurance when it comes down to wildfire, and especially here in California, where we've had so many really horrible wildfires over the last decade. As I record this video, LA is on fire in an unprecedented fire event that's affecting so many families, and my heart really goes out to everybody in the LA area. It is hard to talk about fire insurance now without feeling the emotional effects of the people you know who have been affected. Here in our community, we had the Caldor fire not too long ago. We had friends whose homes almost burned to the ground. We had friends whose homes did burn to the ground. We've been through this personally. My kids and I have spent time every day with the fire bags packed, waiting for the evacuation notices to clear and that sort of thing. So if you live almost anywhere in the state of California, you've experienced this, but it has a major effect on insurance. So the effects of the current LA fires set aside, because we don't know what they will be yet. We certainly know it'll mean going up, but we don't know exactly how much yet. Both of these communities are going to suffer from higher fire insurance costs. Now, there is going to be a little bit of a difference here. Pretty much everywhere in Cool, you're going to be in the high fire severity zones. You are going to be probably a bare minimum in the $5,000 to $6,000 annual premium range out in Cool, but probably most of them $8,000 or more. And if it's a bigger home, more expensive home, more acreage, it could easily be $10,000 or more out in Cool very, very quickly. Now in Placerville, if you are in the city of Placerville, then you've got a chance of having a lower fire insurance cost. Placerville, some parts of Placerville have been designated a fire-wise community. We do have fire stations in Placerville. And so if you're close to one of those, you can stack up some discounts and maybe come out ahead here. It's not unusual to be able to get premiums more in the $3,000 annual premium range in Placerville, but that very quickly jumps up to that $5,000 to $6,000 range, even in town Placerville here. So when it comes to fire insurance, far and away, it's going to cost you a lot more out in Cool. So that is something you have to consider when it comes down to your budget. The difference between a $3,000 to $6,000 annual premium on your monthly mortgage payment versus the effect of a $6,000 to $10,000 annual premium on your monthly mortgage payment is significant. So you have to really decide how bad you want to be further out in Cool, how bad do you want that extra acreage or that horse property, and is it willing or worth it? Are you willing to, and is it worth it to pay the extra fire insurance premiums that it's going to cost to live out in a place like that? Now, I should say right before the LA fires, there was a little bit of hope on the horizon for California insurance prices. There's been a lot of legislative work done on trying to lower the cost for insurance companies and bring competition back to the market so more people can get off the California Fair Plan and be more in the traditional insurance landscape. And they were working on things like stripping out the wildfire policy and setting it as its own standalone policy so that you could have, say, higher deductible on your fire insurance policy and a lower deductible on the rest of your policy. And between the two, you could come in at a lower price than just a standard Fair Plan policy is today. All of that was in the works, and we were expecting a 2 to 3 year cycle of these things coming into California, competition coming back, and hopefully premiums coming down for a lot of Californians. Now, the fires in LA are throwing all that into question. So as soon as we know how that shakes out, we'll do a video for you and give you an update on the cost of fire insurance in California. But for the purposes of this video, just know it's going to be more expensive in Cool across the board than it will be in Placerville. Hey, by the end of this video, you still aren't sure if Cool is right for you or Placerville is right for you, or maybe you want to talk about some of the other towns in the area and try to decide where is right for your family, feel free to reach out to me via the contact information on your screen or in the description down below. Like I said, I've been selling homes here for over 20 years, and I've helped hundreds of families just like yours decide where to land in El Dorado County, and I'm always happy to help. Criteria number 6 when evaluating the communities of Placerville versus the community of Cool is cost of living. Now, of course, we've already gone over the largest line item in most everybody's budget, which is the mortgage, and the homes are going to be just a little bit more expensive in Cool than in Placerville. You are getting more acreage for your money there, but Cool is going to be slightly more expensive due to the cost of homes. Now, what else are we considering? Well, let's talk power. When it comes to power, both places are on PG&E, so both places are going to have about the same cost for power. Both places are going to be equally as hot in the summers, with Cool being maybe a little bit hotter in the summer, Placerville being a little bit colder in the winter. That's just due to elevation. Placerville is around 2,000 feet above sea level. Cool's around 1,000 feet above sea level. And so those are going to be about a wash there on your energy cost. Now there is going to be a discrepancy when it comes to water cost, because most of Placerville, at least city of Placerville, those 5 miles are going to be on city water. Now, most, if not all, of Cool is going to be on either well or GPUD, Georgetown Public Utility District, for water. Now, either GPUD or well are going to be cheaper monthly than the city of Placerville. So you're going to get a little break there. Of course, well is going to be free except for a little bit of electricity to run your well pump. We do have well properties in Placerville as well outside of the city limits, but that is something to consider. Your water cost across the board will likely be cheaper out in Cool. Now, the only other real difference between the cost of living in these two communities, because you're going to access mostly the same places to go shopping and all of that, is going to come down to a little more gas in the cars living out in Cool. It's further out. Like I said, it's 35 minutes north of Placerville, about 15 minutes south of Auburn. So no matter how you slice it, if you're getting out of town, you're spending a little bit of windshield time and a little bit more money on gas getting out of there. So that's the breakdown. These two places are going to mostly have a relatively similar cost of living, but housing is going to cost you a little more in Cool. Water is going to cost you a little less in Cool. You're going to spend a little more money on gas in the car out in Cool. And of course, as we talked about, fire insurance is going to cost more out in Cool than it is in Placerville. Criteria number 7 when comparing these two communities comes down to recreation. Now, this one is near and dear to my heart. If you've been watching the channel for any amount of time, you'll know I'm an outdoor adventure guy. I actually came into this area almost 30 years ago now as a whitewater raft guide and a mountain guide and a rock climber. And so all of that is stuff I really enjoy. And it's one of the reasons I chose to stay here and raise my family here in Placerville, is because it has such great access to adventure sports recreation. Now, Cool is no different. In fact, Cool is actually about the same distance to whitewater rafting and whitewater kayaking as Placerville is. It's closer to all the trails down in Coloma and Lotus probably than Placerville is. It has great access to all of the hiking, mountain biking, and whitewater adventure sports available to you out at the confluence of the Middle Fork and the North Fork of the American River. So it is a great place out in Cool for recreation. It is a great place in Placerville for recreation. There's really only 2 differences, I would say. In Placerville, you're going to have quicker access to ski resorts. From Placerville, you're right about an hour to an hour and a half to South Lake Tahoe, to all the ski resorts that are available there. And you're only an hour door to door to the closest ski resort, Sierra at Tahoe. So if skiing is a big deal for you in the winter, you're going to be a lot closer, and it's going to be a lot quicker to get to skiing from Placerville than it is from Cool. Now, when it comes down to a sport like golf, you're going to have a lot more access, both going up the hill and down the hill from Placerville than you are out in Cool. Not much access to golf out there. You're going to have to go up to the Highway 80 side, would be your closest from the Cool area. Now, the last one on our list when it comes to recreation in terms of differences is equestrian activities. If you're a horse person, like I said earlier in the video, Cool is going to absolutely be your jam. Now, in Cool, there is a subdivision, Auburn Lake Trails. There's no lakes in there. They thought there was going to be a big dam built and back up some lakes out the back of Auburn Lake Trails. Never happened, probably never is going to happen. So you can leave the lakes aside, but the trails portion is definitely there. If you live in Auburn Lake Trails, there's an extensive trail system right in the community, and that taps right into the Western States 100 Trail, where you can ride your horse 100 miles up to the Palisades in Tahoe. So this is an amazing place to own horses. Also, there's all of the stuff around Folsom Lake and the South Fork of the American River in terms of trail systems. You've got the Cronin Ranch Trail System. You've got the Magnolia Ranch Trail System. You've got so many places to go and ride horses if you want to throw them in the trailer. If you live in Auburn Lake Trails, you don't even have to put them in the trailer in most cases. You can just ride out onto the trails. So if you are a horse person and you are looking for a place to have the best access for you to go out and ride as often as possible, far and away Cool gets the win there. For most everything else, adventure sports wise, Placerville gets a little bit of edge just because of its closer proximity to the freeway and to get out and get to those places to recreate quickly. Criteria number 8 when it comes to comparing these two communities is employment. Now, I'm not going to bury the lead here. Far and away when it comes to employment, Placerville gets the win here. If you're living out in Cool, there's really no employers except for the feed store, the gas station, the burger shop, the pizza place, and the Cool Beer Works and the grocery store. There's just those little strip malls there that serve the town of Cool. Now, they are great to have. There is essentially one of everything that you need out there in Cool. So for your daily stuff, you don't have to drive out to Placerville or Auburn. You can get everything you need right there. But when it comes to employment, it's not employing a whole lot of people out there. Now, by contrast, Placerville has Marshall Hospital, which is a major employer, and it has all of the doctor's offices and the little surgery suites and all of that around a Marshall Hospital, all that medical infrastructure that's employing people as well. We also have a lot of schools that are employing people as well. And many people don't know this, but Placerville is the county seat of El Dorado County. So we also have all of the county jobs at the county buildings here in Placerville. And it's also the hub of the El Dorado County Sheriff's Department, and we have all of those jobs as well. So when it comes to jobs, there's no comparison here. If you want to live and work in the same community, Placerville is going to be the place for you. Now, as I said, Placerville is just a 35-minute drive from Cool. So there's a lot of people that live out there and work in Placerville, and that's no big deal as well if you're willing to do a little bit of a commute. But when it comes to jobs in the particular town, within the geographic area of the towns, Placerville wins hands down. All right, that wraps up our discussion of Placerville versus Cool, California. And I hope this information has helped you decide which community might be best for your family. Now, if you want to do a deeper dive into either one, you can click this video right here for the pros and cons of living in Placerville. Or you can click this video right here for the pros and cons of living in Cool, California. And maybe you're not sure if you want either one of those communities and you'd like to see some of our other foothills communities pitted in a head-to-head battle just like this one. You can click this playlist right here for my town versus town playlist. Now, as always, thank you for watching. Thanks for making it to the end with me, and I'll see you on the next one.